He had no height, no physique whatsoever, but he had this wonderful talent, you know, in terms of control of the ball, striking the ball was his forte.
I find the story of Alex Ferguson and David Beckham really interesting, to be honest, because of all the players Alex Ferguson fell out with, talking Roy Keane, Paul Ince, Yap Stam, Wayne Rooney, there's only ever been two who have reconciled with him and who have a good relationship with the boss now that he's retired. And I think there's a number of reasons for that. And in this video, I want to show the ups and downs of this relationship. Now, there's going to be 3 clips. And in the first clip that's coming up next, you're going to hear an amazing description of what David Beckham was like from the boss himself. Here's the first clip.
How did you first come across Beckham, and how old was he? And what did he seem like as a player when you first saw him?
Well, David came to our notice through our scout in London. We're from the same area as David. He was a headmaster at school, Malcolm Fidgen, and he put David on the radar. But the real impact came from Bobby Charlton. Bobby had soccer schools at the time, and David had won a placement for Bobby's soccer school in Barcelona. And Bobby come back and says, I've seen a kid, you need him. So I flagged it up with the chief scout. He says, I've got he's coming next month, just by coincidence. And that was the start. He would be 11 years of age at that time. He was a little thin boy, you know, he had no height, no physique whatsoever, but he had this wonderful talent, you know, in terms of control of the ball, striking the ball was his forte. And his parents were United fans. So his grandfather was a Tottenham fan, but he and his parents were United fans. So he used to come to the game. After we got the contact with him, we invited him to the games every time we were in London. In fact, he was a ball boy in the West Ham game, which is this area of London. And it was a certainty to come to United. He trained at Tottenham for a while. I think he trained somewhere else, maybe Fulham or something like that. But he was always destined to come to United because he wanted to come to United. And in that class of 92, were the team to win the Youth Cup, David never got in the team until the semi-finals because he was just a little boy. Then, within months, 6 foot, still thin, no conformation in his body whatsoever, but no, he was just a skinny boy. And that group, and it's the same desires. The 7 or 8 of them. They talk about the ones that are well known, Giggs, Scholes, but the 2 Nevilles and David. But we had 2 other players would have been great players, but their careers were cut with bad injury. Chris Casper and Ben Thornley, they were outstanding, but they all practiced.
Give a sense of how hard these guys worked.
Well, the training would start 10 o'clock to 12 o'clock. They have their lunch. They would be out in the afternoon practicing all the time, or with the youth coach in terms of the general training. And for David, who lived in accommodation with Mrs. Gosling, with several boys, all other boys, he would go into the School of Excellence at night time and help the coaches with the young kids. So his desires were strong, and also he was a practicer. He practiced. And I think that if the advice I give to any young kid is anyone can play a game of football, anyone, but practice makes you a real footballer.
David Beckham was at one point the best player in the world. He was robbed of the Ballon d'Or in 1999. He was by far Manchester United's best player that year. And that was an amazing team with Keane, Scholes, Dwight York, such an underrated player, scored so many goals, and he was the joint top scorer in the Champions League that year. But David Beckham stood out, and it was because of the story that he endured in that season, because he got sent off in the 1998 World Cup and against Argentina famously, and he was headhunted by the British media, and he was castigated, and he was demonised by everyone. He was booed at every away ground, but it didn't matter. What did David Beckham do? He put his head down, got stuck into playing football, and just made sure that he became the best player that he could possibly become. And he achieved that. And he helped Manchester United win the treble. And that was a testament to that guy's dedication, his hard work. And although David Beckham was very talented, it was his drive and his work ethic that put him on top, as described in the clip that you have just seen. But unfortunately for David Beckham and Manchester United and Alex Ferguson, the relationship between them started to crumble, and Alex Ferguson's reasoning for that was his ever-increasing celebrity, and Alex Ferguson wasn't used to that. He liked all of his players to be humble, to be, it was all about the club, keep yourself quiet, and just concentrate on playing football. But David Beckham was never like that. He always liked to, he lent into the celebrity lifestyle and all of the razzmatazz and all of this. But even though that particular relationship crumbled at that point, Alex Ferguson will learn something from this whole David Beckham episode. But here's what Alex Ferguson had to say.
He fell in love with Victoria. That changed everything, I think. And being a football man, that, you know, I had to think about my own control of the club and where we're going with that. Towards the end, he probably did miss the big time football. And that's a decision he made himself. Maybe in years to come, he'll look back and say, well, maybe I should have stayed with Real Madrid. He's an icon to every kid in the world. He's a very wealthy guy. So how can I possibly argue with that? But I've never had any issue with him at all. I liked him. I thought he was a marvellous guy.
Now, David Beckham was kind of a phenomenon in football, and he still is. If I'm not mistaken, he is still the world's richest footballer. And a lot of his fame, well, it was born out of the football itself, but he was also very good looking, he was very marketable and all of that good stuff as well. And he was quite pioneering in that he was the first world famous footballer, and he was a sign of things to come. And what Alex Ferguson learned from handling the David Beckham situation, he was able to apply to Cristiano Ronaldo. Because Cristiano Ronaldo became just as big as David Beckham. And David Beckham was one of the best players in the world towards the end of his time at Manchester United, but Alex Ferguson still sold him. But he didn't want to sell Cristiano Ronaldo. Now, Cristiano Ronaldo was a much better player, but he was just as famous. So, was it a case of Alex Ferguson endured the fame because he was such a good player? Or did he learn things from the David Beckham situation that he applied to the Cristiano Ronaldo situation? Who knows? Who knows? But one thing's for sure, of all the players, as I've mentioned before, that Alex Ferguson fell out with over the years, Roy Keane, Paul Ince, Jaap Stam, Wayne Rooney, Roy Keane, David Beckham and one other player are the only ones that have reconciled with him. And a big part of that is because of David Beckham himself. He didn't get bitter like Roy Keane, because Roy Keane, even to this day, lives off the fact that he fell out with Alex Ferguson and Manchester United. But David Beckham was a lot more magnanimous. And the way he handles that whole situation is just testament to the kind of guy that he is. And in this final clip, you will see exactly how David Beckham handled the revelations in Alex Ferguson's book.
And I suppose it's difficult to talk about Sir Alex at the moment without mentioning, just very briefly, the book that he's written as well, because he's released a book. Having gone through that and the importance that he played in your career and the relationship you had with him, and there's a lovely line in your book where you said at Manchester United, nothing went in, nothing went out. Everything happened and stayed where it happened. With that in mind, how do you reflect on the fact that maybe things do come out eventually?
Well, yeah, apparently they do. But no, you know, I think I'm not going to sit here and be negative about a man that gave me the chance to have played for my boyhood team.
Yeah.
You know, that I'd always dreamt of playing for. You know, for me, like I said, he gave me the chance to do that. He believed in me. He believed in the rest of the young lads that came through this with us. Funny thing was, obviously I'm involved in the MLS and I'm involved in bringing my own franchise into the league. And actually, he was one of the first numbers that I was going to call to be manager, but
Not now.
I'm not so sure anymore. But
Absolute gentleman.